Hi friends, welcome and welcome back to Donna's Bookshed. Today we're going to be discussing my worst slash most disappointing books of 2024. Okay guys, so I only have 8 worst favorite books of 2024, and honestly most of them are not books that I hated. There are a couple that I actually hate, but I think most of them was more disappointing reads for me. So let's start off with probably the most shocking book on this list, which I think a lot of people really love this book. I heard nothing but good things about this book, which is why I picked it up. But honestly, it didn't do it for me. It didn't do anything for me, and I was hoping for more. So it's Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. And I got this book because, as I said, I heard all these great things about this book. And I also heard this was a book that's really going to pull at your heartstrings. It was really going to make me sad. It was going to make me cry. Nothing. I felt nothing. I felt nothing reading this book. And I don't know if that means I'm just a little jaded or if the book wasn't really that good. But it didn't do it for me. So this was a disappointing read. It's about this girl moves back home because of some things happened where she was, and then she meets this guy Archer, and he has no voice because of some trauma that happened in his childhood. And somehow these two people connected, and then once they figured it connected, they were just on top of each other physically the rest of the book, and then boom, happily ever after. And no, it wasn't it for me. It wasn't it for me. Another book for me that was disappointed, but honestly, I don't really hear people talk about this book, so I don't know if I'm just not in the places where they talk about this book, or if it's just not a popular book. But it is The Flames of Wrath, and it's by J.L. Campbell. And I read this book because the synopsis sounded so good. Like, this book is like the circumstances of the book kind of reminded me of what happened with the Shanquella Robinson story. But in this one, they're not in Mexico, they're in Jamaica. Um, she goes on this trip with her friends, and then on the last night, something really tragic happens to her. And then their friends, they leave her. Um, and then afterwards, the mother goes on this complete revenge tour to handle the people that did her daughter wrong. And I was in full support of that. Where this book left me off was there is a girl in here. She and the mother, she and the daughter, they were really good friends, and they both went to this party. And the friend left because the friend was like, "Yeah, I'm going back to the room because I need to sleep. We have an early flight to catch in the morning." But said main character, she stays at the party, and then this thing happens to her. But then the mother blames the friend that left her because saying she wasn't a good friend. And I'm like, well, that kind of goes both ways. If you and your friend go to a party, it's either the two of you all stay or the two of you all go home and go sleep to catch your early flight. Like, it can be one person stay and one person go, and only one person is a bad friend. Like, why didn't they both leave or both stay? Right? But and the mother does something to that friend in the end that just left a sour taste in my mouth. I was absolutely not. The other thing I didn't like about this is because the mother, her revenge plot felt so much like she was revenging more for her own satisfaction rather than because of the girl. So there's a point in this book where the daughter, the mother starts a blog, and she puts like express stuff that happens to the girl. Like, she goes put it all out there on the internet. And the girl is in the hospital. She's at this trying to recover and learn her body again and function again. And she finds out that the mother did this blog, and she's like, "Hey mom, can you take that? Like, I'm not ready for that level of exposure." And the mom was like, "No, because they have to see what they do to you." And I'm like, if your daughter's the one that went through this and she's not ready to put her business out there like that, why can't you respect that if you're all about protecting her? So I just felt the revenge felt very self-serving, and I didn't like that about the mother at all. And then the whole time we never really get to see like the full mother-daughter good relationship that they have or anything like that. Even if their relationship wasn't that good, we still don't get that good feeling about the relationship. So I didn't like that. Another book I did not like. This one I only have it on Kindle. It's called The Descent by Leah Vernon. I read this book is the part two of a series, and the first book it was fine. I liked it. And this book was just, it just took a nosedive for me with this second book. In this one, they have like this, they're in this dystopian society, of course. So the main lead, she is part of, her family is running things, and then she likes this guy, and in the helping to overthrow her family, she basically wants to hand over things, everything to this guy. And then there's this other girl that she, who is also working against, in the rebellion, trying to help them, but she finds out this girl is her half sister. So basically she is in love with this guy, and this guy is in love with the half sister, and she's running behind him and he's running behind her. And I just didn't like that storyline. I did not like that storyline. It pissed me off. I did not like it. I felt like the first book left off with so much potential ways this could go in the second book, and the second book, it just went so it was really disappointing for me, and I also really disliked it. Another book that was very disappointing to me was Black Shield Maiden by Willow Smith and Jess Hendel. And I had so many high expectations because I was looking so much forward to this book, because I love books about Vikings, I love books about shield maidens, I like TV shows about those things as well. And then so I was looking forward. I was like, oh, you're gonna mesh this, you know, this girl's blackness with the shield maidens, and we're gonna see some here. And in the first half of this book, it was good. It started off in an unexpected way. It was this girl, I think they were back home, and you know, the atmosphere describing the colors and the culture, everything was good. And then right from that, we go into these slavers attacking this village. This girl getting separated from her family. Then she's rescued by the shield maiden. She's taken on their ship. And she's taken back to their home, where she's again sold into slavery to this family. She befriends this princess, and basically most of the book is about her and this princess in this place. And this princess is her own self fighting misogyny and trying to get away from her horrible abusive father, but at the same time she doesn't understand why this enslaved woman would also want to get away from this society, because look at where she is. And I'm like, girl, if you're a princess and you're feeling the ideas, how do you think the unfortunate or the people that are oppressed, why don't you see that them being enslaved is also oppression? So that just pissed me off. And then the actual shield maiden part doesn't come until like maybe the 80 or 90% of the book is where she actually becomes a shield maiden. And then we get a little bit of her training. We just get her described her training, and then boom, she's a shield maiden, and the book, one fight happens and the book ends. And I'm like, why is it called, like, what? No, I wanted her adventure as an actual shield maiden, right? That's what I was getting from the title. That's what I was getting when I looked at the book, and I didn't get it. So it was very, very disappointing to me. Another disappointing book was Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerry Maniscalco, right? And I read this book because I was expecting such a great fantasy romance series. And this book was very atmospheric, and I loved that about it. That was my favorite part. That was the only thing I liked about this book, was the atmosphere. Everything else I didn't like. I just remember it was about these two sisters. They had something on their necklace that they found out had some kind of power. One of the sisters ended up being taken out, and then she is trying to solve the mystery against better advisement. She's trying to find the mystery of what happened to her sister and be able to, you know, get some type of revenge on whoever did that to her sister. And this big mystery ensues, and yada 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 yada. It was, yeah, no, it was disappointing. I didn't even, once I read this, I was like, yeah, I'm not continuing this series. And then I heard from good sources that the books get worse. Yeah, absolutely not. So now we're going to get into my top 3 most disappointing. Actually, no, I hated all of these books. So my 3 worst books of the year, and these are books I yeah. Dun 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 dun. Boom. Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. No, I had issues with Fort Wing, but I still had a good time. I had a fun time with Fort Wing. Right? And then we got to this book, and whatever funness I had with Fort Wings, I mean, don't get me wrong, there were things I didn't like about Fort Wing. But once I got to this book, all the things that I did not like about Fort Wing got amplified. and then there were more things added on that just made me hate this book. So in this book, we are following the protagonist, and she has some type of chronic illness that we hear about, right? That we get told how hard it is, how painful it is, but then she is still the baddest, most strongest, most powerful thing in this book. And I'm like, you're suffering with some type of illness that has you in chronic, debilitating pain all the time, right? But still, you are stronger than everybody else. You can handle more than everybody else. It just gets swept away until we are reminded as a reader, oh, by the way, but you know, she did all of this, but it's so painful for her to climb up the stairs because she's dealing with the pain of battle and the pain of her illness. And then the side characters in this book are all, most of them are just like these unfully realized people. Like, this book is too long for there to have people that have been with her since in book one, and we still barely get anything to make them like full real people, right? And then there's this one maybe POC person is here that is just this cutout stereotype, and I was like, what is this? Okay, and then she, Violet, in this book turns into this insecure idiot. The baby dragon that we loved in book one turns to some intolerable teenage rude. I'm like, all the things we loved about the dragons just get flipped upside down. I was like, what is this? What is this? I dislike this book. The only reason I still had this book is because the reason I finished this book is because I paid for it, and every time I read this book, I thank God I also had the audio, so that's how I finished. Was because I kept reminding myself, no, I paid for this book with my hard-earned money, so I'm going to read every page in here. And then when I was done, I basically hid it at the back of my shelf because I was so annoyed and so pissed off. But I couldn't look at it, but I couldn't give it away because I kept thinking, I spent hard-earned money for this book. What is this nonsense? I will not be going into book 3. Okay? It looks pretty. I'm good. I'm done off the bus. First books. My second most worst book of the year is Children of Anarchy and Anguish by Tomi Adeyemi. And let me tell you, it pains me. It pains me for this book to even be anywhere near this list. Because when I tell you, Children of Blood and Bone was that book for me. It was that book that reminded me as an adult that, hey, you love reading. Hey, you can find fantasy books, books that look like you, books with characters that look like you, books that you would love and enjoy, books with a culture that you could somewhat relate to, that you can like, oh my God, you could see yourself. That was that book for me. And then after waiting years for this, to get this, no. So in this book, this is a book 3, as I said. So after everything that Zelly went through, with her partners and the Magi and all the pain, suffering, fight they went through just to get equality and be treated like equal people in this society, we end up in book 3 where we get this transatlantic slave-like adjacent storyline. All of a sudden, from nowhere, now she's on this new quest to rescue these new people that don't even know danger is coming to them, while her homeland is still in turmoil. They're still fighting each other. This book should have been kept in the drafts. Like, honestly, I wish I could go back in time and unread this book and pretend it never got published. And I would have just stopped at book 2 and let it end there, because the epilogue in book 2 tells you, warns you what was coming. But I was like, no, she won't take it there. She's not going to do that. And then this book came out. I read it, and she went exactly there. No. The only reason I'm still keeping this is because I've invested so much in the series, and I got the pretty edges. That's it. And now on my shelf, I just turn it around so all I see the edges, so I don't have to see the front or the side of this book, because this title is so apropos. Like, this story was pure anarchy, and all I went through reading this book was anguish. That was it. That was it. And then finally, for my worst book of this year, I only have it on Kindle, and I will never get a physical copy of this book. And it is One of Our Kind by Nicole Yoon. Now, let me take a break because I don't want to sound hateful giving this review. But this book pissed me off in ways that I didn't know it was possible for books to piss me off. In this book, we meet this FMC. She is married. She and her husband, the husband gets a come up, and they are able to move from the neighborhood where they want. They were to into this new affluent neighborhood, kind of like stepford wife type of neighborhood. So everything is perfect, everything is in sync. They have no crime, no, everything is wonderful, right? And she goes through this thing where she feels guilty because it's like, okay, they're black and they have money, they should have stayed in their other community and put that money back into there instead of moving out. But at the same time, she's glad because her son gets to be in a safer, better, everything more, affluent neighborhood. He gets different type of school. But then she does this thing throughout the entire books where she goes out of her way to continually judge other black women. She judged them if their nails are done. She does them how their hair is done. Do you have an afro? You got locks? You got a wig? You got a perm? You got a weave? And she's just looking down on them and judging the hell out of them. This book is also set against the backdrop of like Black Lives Matter and the protests and stuff that happens around police endings and stuff like that. And this woman, whenever a story comes up on the news, wherever she is, she forces herself to sit and look at the story, to deep dive into everything. And she is pregnant through this entire book, mind you. So every time this story comes up, she has like this visceral reaction. The lady is like, she wants to vomit and curl up in a corner. That is how she's tears. She cannot function. She can't do nothing. This is how bad this reaction that she has. But every time she forces herself to watch every story, she doesn't skip a story, she doesn't take a break. She looks down at other black people that takes break, and she's trying to tell you how much better she is as a black person in service. She believes in no days off, no getting massages, no self-care. Self-care to her is this, what she's doing, like pushing herself and her time beyond her limits to handle all of this trauma and re-traumatize herself. And then she wants to judge other black people that is not re-traumatizing, that say, hey, okay, I need to pull back, I need to take a break from my mental health and anything. Then you're not a good black person. No, you're not. And then after enduring all of this insufferableness from her, at the end of the book, spoiler, their solution for her family was to become white. That's how you deal with the trauma. You either overindulge and drown yourself in it to the point of incapacitation, or you become white. Yeah. So I hated that book with no apologies. That was the second book I read from the author. And after reading this book, I'm like, yeah, I'm not reading nothing else. I'm not reading nothing else. And reading this book just reminded me the other book I read from her, I think is what is that dancing book called? Yeah, it's called Instructions for Dancing, and I had to hide it. I hid it on my shelf because I didn't want to see her name showing up, because there's a particular scene in that book that I really, really, really disliked. And then reading this book now just reminded me of that, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, you're not the one for me. So yeah, you guys, those were my worst and most disappointing books of 2024. Comment down below and like and subscribe. Let me know if you have read any of these books. If any of my worst books are one of your favorite books, it's okay. I mean, we all have different experiences when we read, so it all won't be the same. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books, or you intend to read them, or maybe I just took them off your list completely. All right, until the next one. Bye.